The fluorescent lights of the bank hummed, a low, constant drone that mirrored the thrumming in my head. My fingers, trembling ever so slightly, clutched the pen, poised over the transfer slip. Sarah, my mother-in-law, had entrusted me with her life savings, a substantial sum accumulated over decades of tireless work at the local diner, every dollar saved for a rainy day, for her golden years. And here I was, about to divert it into my own account. My heart pounded, a chaotic drum solo against my ribs. I rationalized it, of course. My husband Tom and I were drowning. His landscaping business, once promising, was now barely keeping us afloat, choked by unexpected equipment repairs and clients who paid late, if at all. My freelance graphic design work was sporadic, a feast or famine existence that left us perpetually hungry. We had 2 kids, Liam and Chloe, who deserved better than the constant worry etched onto their parents' faces. They deserved new shoes, school trips, a life free from the silent, gnawing fear of eviction notices. Sarah lived comfortably, I told myself. She had her small paid-off house, a modest pension, and never really seemed to use that money. It was just sitting there, gathering dust, when it could be solving our immediate crushing problems. The plan was simple. Borrow it, just for a little while, get us back on our feet, and then pay it back before she ever noticed. A temporary loan, a lifeline. My gaze flickered to the teller, a young woman with a polite but slightly bored expression. She wouldn't question it. Sarah had given me full power of attorney years ago, a testament to her unwavering trust in me, her dear, sweet daughter-in-law. A bitter taste filled my mouth. Sweet, indeed. The form was filled, the numbers precise, the transfer irreversible. I pushed it across the counter, avoiding eye contact. A click, a whir, a printed receipt. It was done. The money was mine. A wave of relief, so potent it felt like vertigo, washed over me. I finally felt like I could breathe again. But beneath it, a cold, hard knot of guilt began to form, tightening with every beat of my triumphant heart. If you're finding yourself on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. More gripping chapters are coming your way. The money hit our account with the force of a tidal wave, washing away the immediate threats that had loomed over us. The overdue rent was paid, the car repair bill settled, and for the first time in months, the pantry was stocked with more than just instant noodles and canned soup. The kids even got those new sneakers they desperately needed for school, their faces lighting up with pure, unadulterated joy. Seeing their smiles, feeling the momentary lightness in Tom's usually burdened demeanor, I almost convinced myself I'd done the right thing. Almost. I spent the next few days in a strange state of heightened awareness, constantly checking my phone, dreading a call from Sarah. Each ring, each text notification sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. But the call never came. She was probably busy with her garden club, or volunteering at the church, or just enjoying her quiet, predictable routine. Sarah was a creature of habit, and that habit usually didn't involve scrutinizing her bank statements until the end of the month. I had bought myself time. The weight in my chest lessened, replaced by a cautious optimism. This was it, our fresh start. Tom was able to invest in some new, efficient tools for his business, which he swore would bring in more lucrative jobs. I dedicated more hours to my graphic design portfolio, aiming for higher-paying clients. We even went out for a modest family dinner, something we hadn't done in ages, the kids giggling over their milkshakes. It felt normal, blissfully, dangerously normal. I pushed the nagging voice in the back of my head, the one that whispered theft and betrayal deeper down. We would pay her back. We would. It was a promise I made to myself, a silent vow whispered into the empty night, hoping it would drown out the growing unease. The illusion of security was powerful, intoxicating, and utterly fragile. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, a day I had specifically marked in my mental calendar as a safe day. Sarah usually visited her sister on Tuesdays. My phone, buzzing on the kitchen counter, startled me, making me drop the mug I was holding. It was Tom. His voice was tight, strained, unusual for him. "Have you heard from Mom?" he asked, without preamble. My heart immediately sank. "No, why? Is everything okay?" I feigned concern, my voice a little too high-pitched. "She's been having these stomach pains, really bad ones for a few days now. She tried to brush it off, Mom, always so tough. But apparently, her neighbor found her collapsed this morning and called an ambulance." My stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't a scenario I had even remotely considered. Sarah, frail and vulnerable. It was unimaginable. She was always the picture of health, robust and resilient. "Oh my God, Tom, is she okay? Which hospital?" I tried to sound genuinely distressed, pushing down the surge of selfish panic threatening to consume me. If Sarah was in the hospital, there would be tests, and tests meant bills, and bills meant she would notice her money was gone. The carefully constructed facade of my newfound relief began to crack, jagged lines appearing across its surface. Tom continued, his voice heavy with worry. "They're running tests now. The doctors aren't saying much yet, just that it's serious. I'm heading to the hospital now. Can you come when you can?" My mind raced, calculating, strategizing, desperately trying to find a way out of the corner I'd painted myself into. "Of course, Tom. I'll just arrange for a sitter for the kids and I'll be right there," I said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. My immediate thought wasn't about Sarah's well-being, but about the rapidly approaching storm. The hospital waiting room was a sterile, impersonal space, filled with hushed whispers and the distant beeps of medical machinery. Tom sat with his head in his hands, looking utterly defeated. His sister, Lisa, a perpetually anxious woman, was pacing nervously, clutching a tissue. I offered them weak smiles, my own anxiety a churning vortex beneath my composed exterior. Hours bled into one another, punctuated only by hurried updates from nurses who offered little comfort. Finally, a doctor emerged, his face grave. He introduced himself as Dr. Chen, and his words were a blunt instrument, shattering any lingering hopes. "Mrs. Henderson has a severe gallbladder infection. It's quite advanced. We need to operate immediately. We've managed to stabilize her for now, but delaying the surgery could be incredibly dangerous. Her gallbladder could rupture." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken urgency. Tom looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "Surgery? How soon?" Dr. Chen's gaze was direct. "Tomorrow morning, first thing. We've already cleared a slot." My blood ran cold. Tomorrow, the money, her savings. It was all I could think about. The doctor continued, talking about risks, recovery, and estimated costs. My mind, however, fixated on one terrifying phrase. Estimated costs. Sarah would need that money. Not just for the surgery, but for post-op care, medications, maybe even a home health aide. And it was all gone, swallowed by my desperate attempt to keep my own life from crumbling. A sick, suffocating feeling enveloped me. I looked at Tom, his face etched with concern for his mother, completely oblivious to the catastrophic betrayal I had orchestrated. How could I tell him? How could I ever explain this? The knot of guilt that had been forming in my stomach now tightened into a full-blown panic attack. If you're gripped by this unfolding drama, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories. Your support keeps us going. The drive home was a blur of flashing city lights and my own spiraling thoughts. Tom was talking about Sarah, about how strong she was, how she'd pull through. I nodded, feigning agreement, while inside, my mind was a frantic kaleidoscope of scenarios, each one more horrifying than the last. How could I possibly explain the missing money? The power of attorney I had used, the swift, silent transfer. It would expose me for the thief I was. I needed a story, a believable one. Something that would explain why Sarah's account was suddenly empty without implicating me. My mind, usually sharp and creative, was sluggish with fear, but a desperate idea began to form. A phishing scam, an elaborate, sophisticated online fraud that had drained her account. It was plausible, wasn't it? Older people were often targets. It would paint her as a victim, not me as a perpetrator. And it would buy me time to somehow, impossibly, replace the money. When we got home, the kids were asleep, their innocent faces a painful contrast to the darkness swirling within me. Tom went to bed, exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, the glow of my laptop screen illuminating my desperate research into common online scams. I needed details, specifics, something to make the lie convincing. I drafted a mental script, rehearsing the words, the expressions, the feigned outrage. I imagined telling Tom, watching his reaction, hoping he would believe me. The thought of his disappointment, his disgust, if he knew the truth, was unbearable. This lie, though terrifying, felt like my only escape. The deeper I dug myself into this hole, the more impossible it seemed to climb out. The air in the house, usually a source of comfort, now felt heavy, suffocating, thick with the unsaid and the unspeakable. The next morning was a whirlwind of anxiety. Sarah was in surgery. We waited, Tom, Lisa, and I, in the same sterile waiting room, the tension palpable. My phone buzzed with notifications from my bank. Direct debits for our rent, the car payment, the kids' school fees. The money was being used, irrevocably. The window to return it was shrinking with every passing minute. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Dr. Chen returned, a tired smile on his face. The surgery was a success. We removed the infected gallbladder without complications. She's in recovery now, stable. We expect a full recovery, but it will take some time. A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Tom embraced Lisa, tears in his eyes. I offered a forced smile, my stomach still churning. The immediate threat to Sarah was over, but the threat to me was just beginning. As soon as we were alone for a moment, Lisa, ever practical, turned to Tom. So, what about the bills? Did Mom have medical insurance? Tom nodded. Yes, but there will still be deductibles, co-pays, and post-op expenses. It won't be cheap. She has her savings, though. That should cover it. My heart leaped into my throat. This was it. The moment of truth. My mouth felt dry. My palms sweaty. Actually, I interjected, trying to keep my voice steady. I was just about to tell you both. I think Sarah might have been a victim of a scam. I watched their faces, searching for signs of belief or suspicion. Tom frowned, confused. A scam? What are you talking about? Lisa's eyes narrowed slightly, a spark of skepticism in them. The web of lies I had spun felt flimsy, transparent, ready to snap under the slightest scrutiny. I launched into my rehearsed story, painting a vivid picture of a sophisticated phishing scam. Fake emails, convincing websites, a seemingly legitimate request for personal information that had somehow, inexplicably, led to her entire savings being siphoned away. I emphasized how careful Sarah usually was, how cunning these scammers were, how anyone could fall victim. I even managed to squeeze out a few crocodile tears, lamenting how terrible it was that someone would prey on an elderly woman. Tom, bless his trusting heart, looked genuinely distressed. Oh my God, Mom. How could this happen? She's always so careful with her computer. He started to pace, running a hand through his hair. We need to call the bank immediately. Call the police. But Lisa, ever the sharp one, wasn't buying it. Her gaze was piercing, dissecting every word, every waver in my voice. When exactly did this happen, Kelly? Did Mom tell you about it? Why didn't she say anything to us? Her questions were like daggers, each one hitting closer to the truth. She must have been too embarrassed, I stammered, scrambling for an answer. It must have happened recently, maybe just before she got sick. I noticed some strange activity when I was helping her with her online banking a few days ago, but I didn't think much of it until now. Another lie, piling onto the precarious tower. Lisa crossed her arms, her expression hardening. Kelly, Mom gave you power of attorney, didn't she? You have access to her accounts. If you saw something suspicious, why didn't you report it immediately? Why wait until after her surgery, when we're talking about bills? The air crackled with unspoken accusation. My carefully constructed facade was crumbling, brick by brick. The ground beneath me was giving way. I could feel the cold dread of exposure creeping up my spine. My gaze flickered to Tom, who was now looking between us, a dawning suspicion slowly clouding his features. The noose was tightening, and I felt utterly, hopelessly trapped. Are you on the edge of your seat? Don't miss the next dramatic turn. Subscribe now to catch all the updates. The atmosphere in the hospital waiting room shifted from one of shared anxiety to chilling suspicion. Lisa wouldn't let it go. She pressed me for details about the scam, asking questions I couldn't possibly answer without inventing more elaborate lies. Tom, seeing Lisa's unwavering skepticism, started to ask his own questions, his voice laced with a growing unease. Kelly, you said you saw strange activity a few days ago. What kind of activity? Did you check her statements? My mind raced, trying to weave a convincing narrative. Just some unusual login attempts, from unknown locations. I thought it was just a glitch, a warning from the bank. I didn't want to worry Sarah. She gets so stressed. My voice was thin, reedy, betraying the panic surging through me. I could feel their eyes on me, scrutinizing, analyzing. The weight of their combined gaze was suffocating. Lisa scoffed. Login attempts don't just clear out an entire savings account, Kelly. There would have been transfers. Specific transactions. You have power of attorney. You would have seen it. Her voice was low, but every word was a hammer blow. Tom's face, usually so open and trusting, was now a mask of confusion and hurt. Kelly, is there something you're not telling us? He asked, his voice barely a whisper, but it carried the full weight of his dawning realization. The truth, ugly and undeniable, was clawing its way to the surface. The meticulously built structure of my lies was collapsing around me, leaving me exposed and vulnerable in the debris. I felt the heat rise in my cheeks, my heart hammering against my ribs. There was no escape. The dam broke. Under the relentless pressure of Lisa's questions and Tom's heartbroken gaze, I confessed. The words tumbled out, a torrent of desperate explanations and self-pitying justifications. The financial struggles, the mounting bills, the kids' needs, the borrowing, the intention to repay. It all sounded hollow, pathetic, even to my own ears. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Lisa's sharp intake of breath and Tom's anguished groan. His face was a mixture of shock, betrayal, and profound disappointment. You stole from my mother? Our mother? While she was sick? His voice, usually so calm, was now raw with pain. He looked at me as if he was seeing a stranger, a monster. Lisa, her face pale with anger, didn't even bother with words. She just shook her head slowly, a look of utter disgust etched on her features. I always knew there was something off about you, Kelly, but this is beyond contemptible. The weight of their judgment was crushing, far heavier than any financial burden I had ever faced. I tried to reach for Tom, to plead for understanding, but he recoiled, as if my touch would contaminate him. "Don't touch me," he whispered, his eyes filled with a pain so deep it made my own chest ache. "How could you do this?" To her, "She trusted you. I trusted you." The accusation in his voice was a physical blow. The shame enveloped me, a cold, suffocating blanket. The dream of a fresh start, of security, had dissolved into a nightmare of my own making. The consequences, once a distant fear, were now immediate, tangible, and utterly devastating. The family I had clung to, the love I had taken for granted, was shattered beyond repair. The aftermath was a brutal, drawn-out affair. Sarah, recovering slowly, was devastated when she learned the truth. Not just by the loss of her savings, but by the betrayal from her own daughter-in-law. The look in her eyes, a mixture of hurt and incomprehension, was far worse than any shouted accusation. She didn't rage. She simply withdrew, her once warm demeanor replaced by a chilling distance. Tom, unable to reconcile my actions with the woman he thought he married, moved out, taking the kids with him. His love, once a steadfast anchor, had completely unmoored. The house, once filled with the chaotic joy of children and the rhythm of family life, was now eerily silent, a monument to my greed and deceit. My attempts to apologize, to explain, were met with cold silence or curt dismissals. "It's not about the money, Kelly," Tom had said, his voice devoid of emotion. "It's about trust, and you destroyed it." Lisa ensured the incident wasn't just a family secret. She reported it to the bank, to the authorities. While no criminal charges were immediately pressed, the civil case was swift and unforgiving. I was ordered to repay Sarah, with interest, a sum that felt astronomically out of reach. My freelance work, once a potential source of income, dried up as word of my actions spread through our small community. No one wanted to work with a thief. The public shame was relentless, a constant burning spotlight on my errors. Alone in my empty house, surrounded by the echoes of a family I had shattered, I finally understood the true cost of my actions. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the irreparable damage to relationships, to trust, to my own soul. The temporary relief I had felt, the fleeting illusion of security, had evaporated, leaving behind a desolate landscape of regret. I had wanted to provide for my children, to secure their future, but in doing so, I had stripped them of their family, of their mother's integrity. The consequences I now faced were far greater than any financial debt. I was truly alone, facing a future as empty as Sarah's bank account had once been. A future I had painstakingly, selfishly created for myself. There was no escape from this reckoning, no more lies to spin, only the cold, hard truth of my own making. And that's the end of our story. We hope you were captivated by this intense drama. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling narratives. Thank you for watching.